Hello, I'm Glenn W. Hunter, and with me today is subject matter expert Shore Denny. And this is the three C's of SEL, social emotional learning. And the three C's, communication, community, collaboration, all come together as how our communities just process the information that we're enduring in these crazy times. Today, we're going to talk about election stress. So, without further ado, sure, election stress. What comes to mind with that topic?
Ooh, anxiety. That's the kind of stress that I'm feeling right now when you think of that, the election and the outcome and all of that. Stress is anxiety.
So when you start looking at it really in depth, one of the things we're seeing in the details is that this election season has had so much tension leading into it, and now it has arrived. People are casting votes. And you have American citizens right now that, fundamentally, they're placing their ballots. There's a lot of uncertainty. And sometimes, on top of all that, they're waiting for hours just to cast their vote, to exercise their American right. How
Yes.
does that impact people emotionally?
It's got to be stressful. I mean, it's awesome. It's got to be empowering to be out there and to be in the midst of all of those people out there waiting to vote. To know that you're one in this moment of change has got to be just an amazing feeling being there. Just as far as being there with all of these record crowds, right? There are
Mhm.
records everywhere. But to know that you're going to have to um, be stuck in lines for, I think in Texas or somewhere it was 8 hours, longer than 8 hours. People are getting up and getting in line at 3 a.m. to vote, I think is stressful, brings on anxiety and a sense of depression. Look at the extent that they will go to stop us from voting. It's quite depressing to know that groups of people. Think of the poll watchers. What are they called? The
Poll watchers.
intimidation that they're now doing to try to get people to not vote is really an issue right now, and it's very depressing, and again anxiety. My husband told, we were talking about the vote, and I want to vote on election day. That's just my personal decision. That's what I want to do. And he said to be careful, we're going to vote together because who knows what could happen out at the polls. So right now, all on the news and everywhere you see, they're saying make a voting plan. So I think the best way to help us all is to plan it, plan the day, give the day to voting, and make a plan for that day.
I think that is extraordinarily good advice to make a plan because we're in uncharted waters with this. People have voted before. You would vote early, maybe because of your work schedule or childcare issues or maybe travel plans, but it was always a matter of convenience. Now it's actually a matter of just managing your life so you don't lose a day that you don't expect. So I think it's important when you talk about planning for it so that you can actually exercise a right, which was very easy now, but it's now challenging, but it's no less important.
When we look at this and how populations have fought for the right to vote, women, people
Mhm.
of color, these same tactics have been used since the end of slavery. White supremacist groups and groups that felt they were superior have made these types of things, this intimidation that they're using, harming their own people to try to keep them in tow, make sure you follow the line. This is something that has been going on and on throughout history. It was in the 60s. It was in any great time that there was, a big reason to vote. Right now, up until this election, last presidential election, people didn't really, I think, see the need, that we had been lulled into this make-believe world of America where it would run without us, that America didn't need the American, the democratic process. We felt that, I guess we felt that, the people that they went into office some magically way, right? Something, I didn't vote for them, so magically they appear, and then they treat us bad, and it's not our fault. And we, so all the way up until 2016, I believe, we kind of got into this world where a fantasy where democracy runs on its own. And I think that these last 4 years have been very depressing, and that they've brought a lot of anxiety, and that is why now we are willing to stand in those 8-hour lines. We are willing to make the plan to vote, because 4 years ago we weren't. So, I think we've learned a lesson, and I think that it's been a traumatic lesson that we're all dealing with, all of the signs of trauma, and that hopefully this election ending in a way that the majority of America wants will help alleviate some of the stress and the anxiety that we feel.
As you're talking about that stress, that anxiety, one of the things that's really put that into just, supersonic speeds is the mudslinging that's going on. So it's not just what's happening in the line, it's the events and the discussion that's taking us before we get to the line as we're making our decisions. And, it's funny because mudslinging has been a part of American politics for decades, but it seems extreme in this particular season. And I think that it becomes an issue of who do you trust as a voter, Mr. Voter, Miss Voter, who do you trust? And I put that question to you, Shora, who do you trust? And what is the criteria for that trust?
First, I'm going to say that this is nothing new, that throughout our history, we've had some very, very contentious elections, that there have been, assassinations and riots and fights and over different, eras of our time. Oh, I think I'm a fiscally responsible Democrat. However, I believe in a lot of programming, right? Community or social programming. So I don't like any of the candidates. If we really want to be clear and understand the truth of it, I don't think that our election process right now is able to provide us with a candidate that is actually from the people. I think it's a little too early. I think it's coming, it's a little too early. So out of the choices that we have, because of the way the system is set up, we're dealing with millionaires, right? So out of our aristocracy, right? Our Senate, those really, we call them oligarchs in our country. What that looks like, our ruling class is who we get to pick from. And out of that ruling class, we have found two people that we have decided will represent us right now. And I, again, will go along with that. They're not my candidates, but I think that they are the best step for America right now. And that's Joe and Kamala, or Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. And I think that the reason that I'm picking them is, number one, I've looked at Joe's record, and we voted for Joe before. As a Black culture or community, we voted for him. He did us no harm. He helped with Obama. I think that his history of how he's worked with Black rights is in his favor. I think if we look back to his long history of political life, laws and society changed. There are votes that I made in the 1990s that right now I'm like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. That wasn't a good choice for me to have made, a yes for that vote or a no for that vote. So why wouldn't we think that our elected officials have that same epiphany that, oh, okay, that's where society was at that time. Society's not there now, and they're able to move with it, just like we are. So I think that what he did in the past was in the past, and that he's looking at our good right now. Picking Kamala, I think, was a very good thing. I like her. She's not my ace one pick either as far as presidential candidates, but I understand why she was chosen, and I back that choice. So not everything that I want and not everything that we want in a democratic society will we get. It is called compromise. So I am willing to compromise and fight for these two candidates because of their integrity, their history. Kamala was hard on, her police actions were rough, but she followed the law. And that's what I want her to do now. I want her to, make sure that our Constitution is followed and that the rights of the people are upheld. And I believe that she is strict and that she will do that. She will make sure that our rights are upheld.
Indeed, indeed. Definitely appreciate the vehemence, the excitement with regards to how you've processed your choice in this regard, and some of the implications of that. Depending on how the election actually plays out. But as we're getting to that point, we still have the tension and well, frankly, trauma that's associated with our elective process. The poll watching is a thing. It is a type of intimidation. And the idea is to get people to become uneasy with their decision and buying in to someone who's being an aggressor into their opinion, which fundamentally is not the American way. So,
Well, yes, it is. We need to really look at our history and fix some of the things that we're saying, because this has happened. Voter suppression, suppressing the minority vote, look at what was it, Bush versus Gore. These things have happened before, and we need to acknowledge that, remember it, so that we don't let it happen again.
so with that type of historical background, and I do have to give you the kudos for being thorough with your American history on that. Absolutely. The poll watchers that we have now, is that something that we should be concerned about?
Yes. Live in a democratic society. The point is they shouldn't be there. What we should be concerned about is, why aren't the police stopping them? Why are we having, in places I understand that they can carry weapons, but why are there weapon carrying terrorists intimidating rightful voters? And why aren't the police in any of these states doing anything about it? That's what we need to be concerned about. The fact that an American feels that they have the right in their country to have their opinion, we all do. I just don't think that we should be able to hold a gun and go and intimidate people, or try to take their rights away from them. We all have a right. That's one of the things that is so depressing about this election is you're talking about the bad words about the candidates. Look at these as people, us people, how we are communicating to each other about our choices, right? Look at the nastiness in society right now, and this real fight for cultural equality that we're going through. I think that the non-people of color have, thrown out everything. They're hitting us with everything they have to try to keep that edge. And unfortunately, they're losing it. Well, not unfortunately, but they're losing it. And it will be gone certainly in a couple of more years, because they are now the minority, right? Not the majority, but the majority of people need to be smart, and we need to pay attention. Again, remember history, know that none of this is new, that they've been doing it to us forever, and that they're just hiking it up. And the only reason they're doing that is because our leadership is allowing them to do it to us.
I think with that final point, that the leadership is empowering this, I think really gets to the core of the trauma that Americans are experiencing. It's something that we have in our, again, our American way that is in fact detached from the reality we're actually living through. And I think that's something that we have to be mindful of, but it's also something that we have to have the tools to endure. The intimidation, the mudslinging, the poll watching, the lying for that matter, is not going away from our political system, evidently. So in parting, Shore, what advice do you have to American voters to help them process so they get through this season and they're able to have a sense of personhood as we go into our next round of leadership?
I'm going to tell you that action is the key. Action stops fear. Action defeats intimidation. So get active. There are still days to become a poll, a poll worker, or drive people to the polls, or just to vote. Just make sure that you do something, some action against what you are, fighting against the oppression that you perceive. So vote. That's the biggest thing that we can do. It'll make you feel good. Your vote, look at all of the other people voting, and again, get in the voting process.
Outstanding. Outstanding. I can't do better. Vote. Use your right.
Dig it, vote.
With that, again, I'm Glenn W. Hunter. My subject matter expert, Shore Denny, coming through with both insight, wisdom, and a bit of attitude, because that's really what it's going to take for us to get through this. And Shore, appreciate your candor. And again, the points that you drive home. And we are the 3 C's of social emotional learning. So without further ado, I'd like to wrap this up and encourage all of you, and to borrow Shore's word, vote. Equally important, be safe. We look forward to talking to you again soon.
Make a plan. Go with the partner. Take food, maybe a little mobile chair. Be prepared.